In this episode, we begin moving from the narrow view of individual controls and technical tasks into a wider view that matters deeply on the Certified Information Systems Auditor, CISA, exam and in real organizations. Domain 2 asks you to understand how information technology, IT, is directed, organized, monitored, and connected to business needs, which means this topic is really about leadership decisions more than keyboards and cables. A company can buy strong technology and still struggle badly if nobody has clear authority, good planning, or a shared understanding of risk, priorities, and accountability. That is why management of IT sits so close to governance, strategy, policy, and oversight. For a brand new learner, this domain can feel more abstract than a topic like access control or backup procedures, but it becomes much easier once you see that every system, process, and control depends on somebody making good decisions at the right level. When those decisions are weak, even smart technical teams end up working in confusion. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A common beginner mistake is assuming that managing IT simply means supervising the help desk, keeping servers running, or making sure employees can log in each morning. Those tasks are part of operations, but management of IT is broader and more intentional because it includes setting priorities, assigning responsibility, approving investments, defining acceptable risk, and deciding how success will be measured. In other words, management creates the environment in which technical work happens. If a team has no clear budget, no agreed direction, and no meaningful policies, it can still be very busy while delivering little real value. A useful way to think about it is to picture an airport rather than a single airplane. Pilots, mechanics, air traffic controllers, and ground crews all do important work. Yet the airport still needs coordination, rules, funding, leadership, and oversight so everything supports a larger purpose safely and reliably. That wider coordinating role is much closer to what this domain is teaching. Once you see that broader view, the next big idea is alignment between IT and the business. IT does not exist as a hobby inside an organization, and it is not there just because modern companies are expected to have systems, applications, and networks. It exists to support goals such as serving customers, producing goods, delivering care, educating students, processing payments, or protecting sensitive information. When IT is aligned with the business, leaders can explain why a system matters, what problem it solves, how much it should cost, and how its success will be judged. When alignment is weak, the organization often ends up with duplicated tools, delayed projects, frustrated users, and technology choices that make sense to technicians but not to the people paying for them. From an audit perspective, this matters because a control can be working exactly as designed and still be a poor choice if it does not support the organization's mission, risk appetite, or operational reality. This leads naturally to one of the most important distinctions in the entire domain, which is the difference between governance and management. Governance is the higher-level function that sets direction, establishes expectations, and provides oversight, usually through senior leadership and the board or equivalent governing body. Management works within that direction by planning, building, running, and monitoring the activities needed to achieve the stated goals. A simple way to remember the difference is that governance asks whether the organization is doing the right things, while management asks whether the organization is doing those things well. In practice, the line is not always dramatic, but the distinction matters because confusion here creates real problems. If leadership never sets priorities, managers cannot make consistent decisions, and if managers never report results honestly, leaders cannot provide meaningful oversight. Many CISA questions quietly test whether you can recognize which level should own the decision being described. Another major idea in this domain is accountability, because good management of IT depends on clear ownership. Systems do not manage themselves, and risks do not magically belong to the security team just because security people talk about them often. Every important service, application, database, process, and project should have people who are responsible for decisions, performance, funding, and risk acceptance. That does not mean one person does all the work, but it does mean somebody must be answerable when priorities conflict, when controls are weak, or when business requirements change. Without that clarity, organizations fall into a pattern where many people are involved, but no one truly owns the outcome. Auditors pay close attention to this because blurred accountability leads to delayed remediation, inconsistent approvals, and control gaps that remain open simply because teams keep assuming another group is handling the issue. Clear roles make review, escalation, and decision-making much stronger. Strategy is another cornerstone of management of IT, and beginners should think of strategy as the long-term logic behind technology choices. A strong IT strategy is not a random wish list of modern tools, and it is not a collection of disconnected projects that happen to receive funding during the same year. Instead, it explains how the organization will use technology over time to support business goals, manage risk, control costs, and improve services. That might include decisions about modernization, cloud adoption, data management, staffing, resilience, or the retirement of outdated systems. The important point is that strategy links present-day spending to future direction. When strategy is weak, organizations often chase trends, purchase overlapping products, or postpone important upgrades until a crisis forces action. On the exam, you are often rewarded for choosing the answer that shows planning, alignment, and sustainability rather than the answer that offers the fastest technical fix to a single immediate problem. To carry out strategy consistently, organizations rely on policies, standards, procedures, and everyday practices, and these are all part of the management picture even though they can sound administrative at first. A policy expresses what the organization expects and why it matters at a high level. A standard defines required ways of meeting that expectation with more precision. A procedure explains how people are supposed to carry out the work, and day-to-day practices show what actually happens in the real environment. For a beginner, the easiest way to understand their relationship is to imagine a promise, a rule, a method, and a habit. If those four elements do not line up, the organization gets inconsistency, confusion, and uneven control performance. Management of IT is responsible for making sure those layers support one another so that employees are not left guessing which rules matter, which processes are optional, and which exceptions are truly approved. Risk is woven through every part of Domain 2, because managing IT always involves deciding what level of uncertainty the organization can tolerate. No environment is perfectly safe, no budget is unlimited, and no control removes all possible failure. Good management acknowledges that reality and uses a balanced approach to reduce the most important risks while still allowing the organization to operate effectively. This is where enterprise risk management, ERM, becomes relevant, because technology risk should not live in isolation from legal, financial, operational, and strategic risk. When leaders understand that connection, IT decisions are more likely to support the whole business instead of protecting one area at the expense of everything else. Auditors care about this because controls should reflect intentional choices, not panic, habit, or personal preference. A mature environment can explain why certain risks were reduced, why others were accepted, and who had the authority to make that judgment. Resources are another core concern, and the word resources includes much more than hardware. It includes money, time, skilled people, vendor relationships, facilities, data, and the attention of leadership, all of which are limited. Good management of IT means using those limited resources in ways that support priority services and business objectives instead of scattering effort across whatever issue seems loudest today. For example, an organization might need to decide whether to hire more staff, outsource a function, modernize a fragile application, or invest in training for a team that is supporting critical systems without enough depth. None of those choices is purely technical because each one affects risk, performance, resilience, and cost. Auditors examine whether resource decisions are reasonable and controlled because underfunded or poorly assigned resources often create hidden exposure. A beautiful policy is not very meaningful if the organization never funds the people, tools, time, or oversight needed to follow it. Performance measurement is also central to this domain because management cannot improve what it does not understand. Measuring performance does not just mean collecting lots of numbers or building a colorful dashboard that nobody uses after the meeting ends. It means selecting meaningful indicators that show whether services are reliable, projects are progressing, controls are working, users are being supported, and business expectations are being met. Useful measures help leaders spot trends, compare results to targets, and decide where attention is needed. Poor measures do the opposite by creating false confidence or encouraging teams to optimize for a score rather than for real outcomes. An auditor is interested not only in whether metrics exist, but also in whether they support oversight and informed decisions. If reports are inconsistent, ignored, or disconnected from business goals, then management may appear active on paper while still missing the information required to govern the environment effectively. Another part of managing IT is handling change across the full life cycle of systems and services. Technology environments are never frozen because applications are updated, vendors change terms, business processes evolve, old platforms become unsupported, and new risks appear over time. Good management makes sure those changes are planned, reviewed, communicated, tested appropriately, and documented so that the organization is not surprised by avoidable outages or uncontrolled drift. Just as important, strong management knows when a system has reached the point where continued patching is no longer a wise long-term answer. Keeping an outdated but familiar platform alive year after year may feel cheaper in the moment, yet it often raises operational risk, security exposure, and support costs later. Auditors look for evidence that management understands the entire life cycle from acquisition through maintenance to retirement, because unmanaged aging technology is one of the most common sources of weakness in real-world environments. Culture may sound softer than strategy or budgeting, but it is one of the strongest influences on whether IT is managed well. Culture shows up in how leaders respond to bad news, whether people feel safe reporting issues, how exceptions are granted, and whether rules apply equally to powerful employees and everyone else. A healthy culture supports transparency, accountability, and learning, which means problems are surfaced early and addressed before they become crises. An unhealthy culture often rewards speed over discipline, silence over honesty, and convenience over control, which can make even well-written policies meaningless. This matters to auditors because the formal design of a control tells only part of the story. If management says risk matters but routinely bypasses review steps, ignores repeated warnings, or pressures teams to hide delays, then the actual control environment is weak no matter how polished the documentation appears. For many learners, the hardest part of Domain 2 is that it feels less tangible than a firewall rule or a backup schedule, yet that is exactly why it matters. This domain teaches you to evaluate whether the organization has the leadership framework needed for technical controls to make sense, remain sustainable, and support the mission over time. On the exam, the best answer is often the one that strengthens direction, oversight, accountability, or alignment rather than the one that rushes to a narrow operational action. That can feel counterintuitive if you are used to solving problems quickly at the technical level. CISA is asking you to think like an auditor who sees the larger system of decisions behind the immediate symptom. When you practice questions in this area, keep asking yourself who should own the issue, whether the action supports business goals, whether risk is being addressed intentionally, and whether management has enough information to make sound choices. By now, the main picture should feel much clearer. Management of IT is not about memorizing executive titles or treating paperwork as more important than systems. It is about understanding how direction, oversight, planning, accountability, policy, risk, resources, measurement, and culture come together so that technology actually serves the organization well. Domain 2 matters because weak management can quietly undermine even competent technical teams, while strong management makes good security, good operations, and good auditing far more likely. As you move forward, keep viewing every system and every control through a simple set of questions about purpose, ownership, decision rights, acceptable risk, and business value. That mindset will help you not only with CISA exam questions, but also with understanding how real organizations succeed or fail in the way they run technology. When you can see the management choices behind the technology, this domain stops feeling abstract and starts feeling practical.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.